The valley was quiet, filled only with the sound of wind moving through tall grass. The sun shone brightly above, painting the stones and hills in golden light. For many years, this valley had been empty. No human lived here, no farms, no families. It was a place people passed by but never stayed. Yet today, something different was happening. A man stood at the edge of the valley, his heart heavy with the silence of his own life. He was a widower, a man who had once known love and laughter, but had lost everything. His days were empty, his nights colder than the stars above. He had not expected to see anything here, in this forgotten place. But then, his eyes caught sight of her. At first, he thought it was a trick of light. A figure moved in the middle of the field, bending, lifting, and placing something carefully on the ground. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see better. She was not human. Her skin was smooth and carried a faint glow, almost like the sky at dusk. Her hair shimmered silver, catching the sunlight with every movement. She was young, graceful, and strangely beautiful, unlike anything he had seen before. Brick by brick, she was building. The man stayed hidden behind a cluster of rocks. He did not want to disturb her, or maybe he was afraid of what would happen if she saw him. His breath slowed as he watched her hands. They moved with patience, lifting stones heavier than her small frame should allow. Each stone was placed with care, almost like part of a sacred ritual. The widower's chest tightened. Why was she here? Why would an alien girl choose this lonely valley to build a house, stone by stone, all by herself? Hours passed. She never looked around, never searched for company. Her focus stayed only on the walls that slowly rose from the earth. Sweat shone lightly on her skin, but her movements never weakened. There was strength in her silence, and there was mystery in her determination. The man felt something he had not felt in years: curiosity. He told himself he should leave. She was not his concern. She was from another world, another life. He had no right to stand here, no reason to stay. Yet his feet did not move. His eyes kept returning to her figure, to the strange house that was slowly taking shape. The house was not human in design. The walls curved, rising in a circular form, almost like a dome. Strange patterns were carved into each brick, symbols that glowed faintly when the sun dipped lower. It was no ordinary home. It was something more, something alive with meaning. The widower felt his heart beat faster. He tried to look away, but he could not. Each brick she set down seemed to echo inside him. Each movement she made pulled him closer into a story he did not understand. He thought of his own home, the one he had lost. He remembered laughter, warmth, and the faces of those who were gone. Watching her build felt like watching a dream come alive, a dream he feared to touch. The alien girl paused for a moment. She lifted her head, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. The man froze, pressing himself against the rock. Did she know he was there? Her gaze lingered, steady and unreadable, then slowly returned to the bricks. The man released a breath he had been holding. His body trembled, but not from fear. From something else, something dangerous. Hope. He stayed until the sky turned red with evening. The girl continued to build, brick by brick, never stopping. And the widower, though he knew nothing about her, could not leave. For the first time in years, he felt alive again. And that strange sight, in that lonely valley, was only the beginning. The widower returned the next day. He told himself it was only to pass time, that there was nothing waiting for him at home anyway. But deep inside, he knew that was not the truth. Something about the alien girl pulled him back, as if every brick she placed whispered to him. He hid again among the rocks, watching. The girl worked just as before, her hands steady, her body strong despite her delicate frame. She carried heavy stones without complaint, set them down with care, and pressed her palms against them as if sealing something unseen into their surface. The man found himself leaning forward, studying her every detail. The way her silver hair caught the light, the calm expression on her glowing face, the strange symbols that seemed to pulse whenever her hands touched the bricks. It was work, yet it was also something more, something sacred. Hours passed, and the man realized he had not moved. He did not eat, did not drink, only watched. His heart, long buried under sorrow, beat with a strange rhythm he could not explain. As days turned into weeks, his visits became a silent ritual. Each morning, he would rise and walk to the valley. Each day, he would find her there, building, never speaking, never stopping. And each time he watched, the emptiness inside him grew a little smaller. He began to notice small details others might miss. The way she sometimes paused to look at the sky, as though waiting for someone. The way she touched the walls, not like stone, but like something living. And once, when the wind blew across the valley, he thought he heard her humming a soft, low sound that stirred the air like a forgotten melody. He wondered about her life. Did she live alone? Did she have a family somewhere far away? Was she building this house for herself, or for someone yet to come? These questions filled his mind, yet he dared not step closer. At night, when he returned to his empty room, her image remained. He closed his eyes and saw her lifting bricks, her hair glowing beneath the fading sun. He told himself it was curiosity, but he knew it was more. He had not felt this pull since before his wife died. It scared him, and yet he could not resist. One evening, as he prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. The alien girl paused in her work. She turned her head slightly, her eyes glowing faintly as they moved across the valley. For a moment, it seemed she was looking right at him. His breath caught, and his body froze. The distance between them felt heavy. Yet her gaze was not sharp, not hostile. It was calm, almost knowing. The man's heart pounded in his chest. Had she seen him before? Had she always known he was there? But just as quickly, she turned back and lifted another brick, setting it carefully into place. The widower stood there, trembling. He wanted to walk away, yet his legs refused. He wanted to speak, yet no words came. Instead, he stayed, as silent as he had been since the beginning. Something inside him told him this was only the beginning of a bond neither of them expected. And for the first time in years, he began to wonder if fate had brought him to this valley for a reason. The nights grew colder, and still the girl worked. The widower found himself returning again and again, his curiosity turning into a strange kind of devotion. He no longer told himself lies. He knew he came for her each day. The house grew taller. The walls curved upward in patterns no human would design. They spiraled with symbols, glowing faintly when touched. At dusk, the faint light spread across the walls like veins of fire, then faded when darkness fell. The man could not explain it, but he felt that the house was more than stone. It was alive in some hidden way. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he noticed something different. The girl did not place a brick immediately. Instead, she stood with her hand pressed against the half-built wall, her eyes closed. Her lips moved silently, as though whispering words into the stone. The widower shivered. Was she praying? Was she speaking to someone he could not see? The wind carried strange sounds that night. From the trees at the edge of the valley, a low cry echoed. It was not human, not animal, but something wild. The girl did not flinch. She only lifted her head slightly, her glowing eyes scanning the shadows. Before returning to her work, the widower's chest tightened. He had lived on this world for years, but he had never heard a sound like that. Danger lingered near, yet the alien girl seemed unafraid. It made him wonder, was she stronger than she looked, or did she know something he did not? Days passed, and the mystery only grew. Sometimes, at night, he dreamed of her. He dreamed of her house glowing like a lantern in the dark, and of himself standing inside it, safe, no longer alone. When he woke, the dream clung to him, heavy and sweet. He began to notice the details of her face, the calm curve of her lips, the way her hair shimmered as though lit from within, the soft strength in her eyes. She was not just beautiful, she was something more, something that made him question the grief that had chained him for so long. One morning, when the mist was still heavy in the valley, he arrived early. The girl was already working. He watched her lift a heavy stone, far heavier than her slim arms should carry. She placed it gently, pressing her hand against the surface. The glowing symbols spread like ripples under her touch. The widower swallowed hard. He could not deny it any longer. She was building more than a house. She was shaping something that belonged to her people, something filled with meaning he did not understand. And yet, he could not stop watching. That evening, as the stars filled the sky, the man stayed longer than usual. He saw her stop and lift her head again, her gaze moving toward the dark hills. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. and her body stiffened for just a moment before she returned to her work. The widower clenched his fists. He realized then that he was not the only one watching her. Something else was out there, something hidden in the shadows. His heart beat faster. He should leave, but he could not. For the first time, fear and longing twisted together inside him. He was no longer just a silent observer. He was part of something unfolding, something far bigger than he had imagined. And though he did not yet understand it, he knew the valley would never be the same again. The widower had told himself many times that he would never cross the invisible line between them. He would only watch, never step forward. But one afternoon, the choice was taken from him. The girl was lifting a heavy stone, larger than the ones before. Her arms trembled slightly under the weight, and for the first time he saw her stumble. The brick slipped from her grip and struck the ground with a dull thud. She crouched, catching her breath, her glowing eyes dimming for a moment. Before he realized what he was doing, the widower moved. His boots crunched against the dirt as he stepped out from the shadows. His heart pounded so loud he thought she must hear it. He reached down, lifted the stone, and set it where it belonged beside the others. The alien girl straightened slowly. Her eyes, bright as moonlight, locked onto his face. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions. He swallowed hard, his hands shaking slightly. "I just wanted to help," he said, his voice rough with disuse. The girl did not answer. She only tilted her head, studying him with a gaze that felt far older than her youthful face suggested. Then, without a word, she turned back to her work. The man stood frozen. He expected her to send him away, maybe even show anger. But she did not. She simply picked up another brick, as though nothing unusual had happened. Taking that as a sign, he stayed. For the rest of the afternoon, he silently passed her stones. She accepted them without looking at him, placing each one with the same care as before. They worked side by side in complete silence. When the sun began to fall, the widower stepped back. His chest felt tight, his throat dry. He had done nothing more than carry stones, yet it felt as though he had crossed into another world. That night, lying in his empty bed, he replayed the moment in his mind. The way her eyes had met his, the way she had allowed him to help. It was nothing, and yet it was everything. For the first time in years, he felt needed. In the days that followed, he continued to return. He no longer hid among the rocks. Instead, he approached her openly, carrying bricks or holding beams steady as she set them into place. She still never spoke, but sometimes when he handed her a stone, her eyes lingered on his just a heartbeat longer. That small pause filled him with warmth he had thought he had lost forever. He noticed changes too. The walls grew higher, stronger, and the glowing symbols spread wider. At night, the half-built structure shone faintly like a lantern in the valley. It was beautiful and strange, and he wondered what it would become once finished. But more than the house, it was the girl herself who unsettled him. Each day he grew more drawn to her. Each silent exchange left him hungrier for words that never came. Still, he stayed. Still, he built. And deep inside, he knew that this fragile, wordless bond was becoming something he could no longer ignore. The house was no longer just a pile of bricks. By now, the walls rose high enough to cast shadows across the valley. The widower could walk inside and imagine what it might look like when finished. Yet every time he traced his hand over the smooth stones, he felt something strange. The surface was warm, almost alive, and the glowing symbols shifted faintly under his touch. As though they breathed, the girl noticed his curiosity but never stopped him. Sometimes when he lingered too long on a carved symbol, her gaze followed him, sharp and unreadable. Other times, she simply returned to her work, pressing her palms against the stone in a way that made the symbols brighten. It was as if she was speaking to the house itself, whispering secrets only it could understand. The widower's nights grew restless. He would wake in the dark with the memory of glowing walls and her silent face burned into his mind. The thought that he was helping her build something greater than himself both excited and frightened him. He wanted to ask her what it all meant, but the silence between them held him back. One evening, he came earlier than usual. The girl was already inside the half-built house, kneeling close to one of the walls. Her hands moved in slow patterns across the stone, her voice low and melodic. The widower froze, his breath caught in his throat. He had never heard her speak before. Her words were soft, foreign, filled with rhythm, almost like a song. The stones pulsed in answer, glowing brighter with every phrase. His chest tightened. This was no ordinary house. It was a vessel for something greater, something beyond his understanding. When she noticed him standing there, she stopped. Her eyes met his, glowing with a light stronger than the symbols themselves. For the first time, he felt as though she could see straight through him, into the hollow places inside his heart. He wanted to ask questions: who she was, why she was building, what these walls meant, but the words stuck in his throat. He feared that if he spoke, the fragile bond between them might shatter. Instead, he stepped inside and quietly placed a brick at her side. She blinked once, then gave the smallest nod before continuing her work. That night, the widower could not sleep. He sat awake, staring at the stars through his window, thinking about what he had seen. He wondered if she was building a home for herself, or a sanctuary for her people, or perhaps something even more powerful, something that reached beyond stone and mortar. But no matter the truth, he knew one thing: he was no longer just a helper. He was part of her secret now, whether she wanted him to be or not. And with that realization came fear, because secrets as heavy as these never stayed hidden forever. The widower's feelings grew heavier with every passing day. At first, it had been curiosity. Then it became habit. Now, it was something more, something he could no longer deny. Each morning he rose with one thought: he needed to see her again. The alien girl had become the center of his world, though she never spoke a word to him. He worked beside her now without hesitation. He lifted stones, carried beams, and placed bricks as she directed with small gestures of her hands. Sometimes their fingers brushed when she took a stone from him, and that single touch stayed with him long into the night. He had lost everything once: his wife, his children, his reason to keep going. Yet here he was, feeling life again, brick by brick, heartbeat by heartbeat. Still, the silence between them was filled with questions. Why did she never speak? Why did her walls glow at night? And why, when the wind carried strange cries across the valley, did she never show fear? The widower began to notice signs of danger more clearly now. Tracks in the soil that did not belong to him or her. Shadows moving at the edge of the forest. At night, he sometimes thought he saw glowing eyes watching from the trees. Something else had noticed the girl's house. Something was waiting. He tried to warn her once. As they worked, he pointed toward the woods. "There's something out there," he said quietly. His voice shook, heavy with worry. The girl lifted her head, her eyes meeting his. For a moment, she held his gaze, then simply turned back to the wall, pressing her palm against the stone until the symbols glowed brighter. It was as if the house itself was her answer, as if she trusted its walls to protect her. The widower's heart ached. He wanted to do more, to protect her himself, but he did not know how. He was only a man, alone and broken. Yet when he looked at her, working with quiet strength, he felt that perhaps he could be more. At night, he lay awake, dreaming of a future he had not dared to imagine in years. He saw her inside the finished house, sitting by a fire, her glowing face soft with warmth. He saw himself beside her, not as a watcher, but as family. The dream filled him with both hope and fear. One evening, as the sky turned crimson, the valley grew quiet, too quiet. The girl paused, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. The widower followed her gaze and felt his stomach twist. Dark shapes moved between the trees. Low growls carried on the wind. The girl did not move. She stood tall, her hand pressed against the half-built wall, her face calm. The symbols across the stone pulsed with light, spreading faster, brighter, as though the house itself was waking. The widower's breath quickened. He knew then that danger was coming closer. Whatever hunted in the woods would not wait forever. His hands clenched into fists. He could not stand by, not this time. He had lost too much already. For the first time in years, his heart burned with purpose. He was not just a watcher anymore. He was part of this. He would fight for it, no matter the cost. And as the alien girl's glowing house lit up the valley, the widower understood one thing clearly: his longing was no longer a dream. It was a promise. The night the danger finally came, The widower was ready. He had no weapons, no armor beyond the scars of his past. But he carried something stronger: his decision. He would no longer remain only a silent watcher. He would stand beside her. The forest stirred with movement. Dark shapes crept closer, their growls echoing through the valley. The widower had heard predators before, but these were different. Their voices were deep, their eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, and the air itself felt heavy with their presence. The alien girl stood inside the half-built walls, her palms pressed firmly against the stone. The symbols blazed with light, casting long beams across the field. The house glowed like a beacon, alive with strange energy. She did not tremble. She did not run. She waited. The widower stepped forward, his boots crunching against the dirt. His hands shook, but his heart no longer wavered. "I won't let them take this from you," he whispered, though he knew she might not understand. The creatures broke through the tree line, their forms monstrous and lean. Eyes like burning coals locked onto the glowing house. They circled, snarling, their hunger clear. The widower grabbed a thick branch from the ground. It was no weapon of war, but it would have to be enough. He stood in front of the wall, between the beasts and the girl, his chest heaving. For a moment, the world froze. The beasts growled, the light pulsed, and the widower felt her eyes on his back. Then, with a roar, the first creature lunged. The widower swung with all of his strength. The branch cracked against bone, and the beast staggered, but another came from the side. He fell to the dirt, rolling away just as claws scraped across the ground where he had stood. His heart thundered, his body screamed in pain, but he pushed himself up again. He had known loss before. He would not lose this. The girl lifted her hands higher. The house blazed with light so bright it blinded the beasts. They howled, covering their faces, stumbling backward. The widower gasped, realizing the house itself was fighting with them. Each glowing symbol pulsed like a heartbeat, pushing the creatures away. Yet the danger was not gone. More shadows moved in the distance. More eyes gleamed. The widower knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of something larger, something dangerous. When the last of the beasts fled into the trees, silence returned. His body shook with exhaustion, but he stood tall. He turned to her. The alien girl lowered her hands. Her eyes met his, glowing softer now. And then, for the first time, she spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear, filled with both strength and sorrow. "You should not have stayed." The widower's throat tightened. He had waited so long to hear her voice, yet her words cut deep. "I couldn't walk away," he said, his voice breaking. "Not from you, not from this." For a long moment, she only stared at him. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm, alive with energy. The touch was brief, but it carried more meaning than words ever could. The widower knew then that he had crossed a line that could never be undone. He was no longer an outsider, no longer just a man watching from the shadows. He was part of her struggle, part of her home, part of her fate. As dawn broke, the valley glowed with the light of the half-built house. The widower stood beside her, aching and tired, but filled with something he thought he had lost forever: hope. And though he did not know what tomorrow would bring, he knew one truth with certainty: he would not leave her side. Not now, not ever.